Good Shabbos, everyone. I'm Greg Yawitz, Board Chair for the Jewish Federation of St. Louis. Welcome to our Friday Federation Community Update. As I've mentioned before, Federation convenes dozens of leaders from around the community twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays to talk about best practices, to collaborate, and to work together as a community while we address this COVID-19 crisis. These past two Thursdays, we focused on a specific topic, and that's the topic of reopening our community's organizations. Federation's been working on our own timetable and making sure we're helping all of our community partners in getting everyone together to talk about best practices. We know many organizations are on their own timetable for reopening, and that it's important to share information so that we do this right, so that we open as safely as we can to get our community back operating again. To that end, last week we had on our call Miriam Seidenfeld from JFS and Joan Dennison from Covenant Place talked about their practices at their facilities. As essential operations, they've continued to be open, and they've had to address this crisis on a daily basis, making sure that their employees are safe, their residents are safe, and their volunteers are safe. And that's been really helpful to the rest of the community to understand how they've been dealing with that. This Thursday on our call, we heard from three experts in HR around issues dealing with the crisis. Dawn Beasley, HR manager at the Jewish Federation, Ann Colander, director of HR from the J, and Rachel Andreasen, executive director from Temple Israel. And they talked about a number of things that they're looking at and they're addressing in their organizations, and talking about what it's going to be like when everyone returns to work. Topics such as protocols for equipment in shared spaces, things like the copier, office supply rooms, things where people get together, and how to safely do that. Understanding those not just in our high-risk populations over the age of 65, but talking about people who have compromised immune systems or other health issues, not just older adults, and caring for those at-risk populations so they can get back to work. Discussion around employees who can do their work at home and whether or not they can still continue to do that, and how that interplays with the need to get back in the office. Talking about precautions that we set up for visitors and making those really public so that as our visitors come back to our organizations, they know that we take their safety as well as our employees' safety very seriously. And recommendations that organizations prepare policies about what happens if a visitor or a client or a member of the staff catches COVID-19 after they come into the building, and also developing policies around how to properly clean once that happens. This coming week, we're going to have Carol Baskin, who is a doctor at St. Louis University, talk to us about issues around the health department guidelines and best practices so that, again, as a community, we open our organizations as safely as possible and keep that focus on the health and safety of our employees, of our volunteers, of our visitors, of our guests, and of our clients. And so Federation continues to keep an eye on what's going on in the community. I know that our community impact team is working on recommendations to our board for additional phase 1 funding, looking at the assessments for what a phase 2 round looks like as we continue to address this crisis. We set up this COVID-19 response fund not as an emergency fund, but as a response fund, as I believe Brian has mentioned many times before. We know that this crisis is going to be with us, and the effects of it are going to last for a long time, and our response is going to take some time. It's going to take a long time for the number of people who have been out of work to get back to work again. And the needs are just still developing. So we're going to do our best to be prepared to address those. I want to again thank the Steinbergs for kicking off the COVID-19 response fund. I want to thank the over 400 donors that have contributed over $657,000 to this fund. We are keeping an eye on what needs to be done, and we're doing that. And we're talking with our partners to make sure that as a community, we work together. Now, in the future, when I believe things will move back toward a somewhat state of normalcy, we do want to let you know to mark your calendars for our first ever virtual annual meeting, and that'll happen on September 10th. Details, of course, will follow. But I do want to say, if you're watching this, Bob Cohn, I will count on you to make the motions as you normally do. So have your mouse button ready when it comes time and we call for someone to make a motion. I hope you have a peaceful and restful Shabbat, and that all of the mothers out there enjoyed Mother's Day in the best way you could with the crisis going on. I look forward to a time when I can see many of you all again in person. I hope that you stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you on next week's call. And if at any time you need anything, go to the Federation's website. There are links to access services through JFS and our other partners. So be safe. Take care.